All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Marvel Buddies podcast. This week, I've brought you a very special character, a very confusing character, and a character that I've wanted to do for a very, very long time. But we're joined by Knight. What's up, Knight? Yeah. And so, yeah, I've been good. I've been good. So, as you can see, right, from the stream, I brought you Kang the Conqueror, right? This is the character that we're covering this week. Just real quick before I get anywhere into him, do you want to tell me what you know about him? Okay. Yeah. 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 Perfect timing, bro. Who's calling you? Oh my God. uh, yeah, on God. Thank you, Jared, for that. Um, but yeah. Okay. So he is related to someone, and we'll get to that. But before we get started, there is something I need to tell you about this character, right? So, if you know, the things related to Kang are time travel, right? Kang is related to time travel and everything that has to do with like realities and time. But Kang's time traveling doesn't come from him. Originally, and to this day, there's only one major player that has ever been able to from scratch make a time machine, and it's Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom was the only person to ever be able to make a fully functioning out of scratch time machine. And so, like you mentioned, he is a relative to someone, to a superhero, um, one that takes on Doctor Doom quite frequently, right? Um, but yeah, I brought you this week Kang the Conqueror. He's from the 31st century, right? And he will continue to live on up until the 50th century or whatever. He's from every century, right? Kang is everywhere and all at all times, right? But Kang the Conqueror was created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Originally, the name Kang the Conqueror was first used in Avengers number 8 in 1964. However, Kang has been around before that, right? He originally, one of his, as you've heard in Loki, one of his what the fuck do you call them? Like variants was a guy by the name of Ramatut, who was an Egyptian pharaoh that ruled Egypt, and he debuted Ramatut in Fantastic Four number 19, right? Which was a year before the Avengers number 8 in 1963, right? So Kang the Conqueror predates himself. A variant of Kang predates himself. And then what I brought you here first was Kang's backstory in the 2021 or 2021 novel Kang the Conqueror number 1 by Colin Kelly, where they actually talk about how this person that is a relative of said superhero became Kang the Conqueror, right? And so here is this person. His name is Nathaniel Richards, right? And Nathaniel is the child of Franklin Richards, who is the child of Reed Richards, right? So Nathaniel is the great or is the grandchild of Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, right? You'll want to keep that in mind for that Fantastic Four novel. I'll eventually get to that. But here's him, and he was born in a utopia, right? He's from what I believe to be the 50th century or something like that, and he lives in the future. There's no need to do anything. The whole world is perfect. He's in utopia, right? If you guys have seen what's the name of that one anime with the man killer virus, you know what I'm talking about, Raul? Um, it's very the one with the man killer virus. World's End, I think it was called World's End Harem or something like that. The anime. It's yeah. Yeah. It's the concept of the utopia is very similar, right? Where people don't have to work, people are all there's no problems in the world. Everyone's fully fed, everyone's good, right? Everyone's very equal. There's technology that influences daily life, right? So that's what he grew up as, right? but he was born in a time of luxury and tranquility, but he had the urge to go out and conquer and become a right, because he was inspired, and he would read novels of kings and knights and whatnot, and them going out and seizing and taking land and whatnot. So those are the people that inspired him, right? People like Julius Caesar and um yep, yep. He he basically, the people that he read were the ancients, like Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar, that conquered and dominated. But he lived in a time where everything was unified, everything was calm, everything was perfect. So he couldn't actually go out and conquer, right? He couldn't fight anyone, right? He was there's nothing to conquer. So here he is, right? And he's heading on his like flying bike, and he lands, and he ends up in a library, the library of Doctor Doom, right? And this Doombot over here activates, and it starts to, you know, programs itself, it comes to life. I know it's very small. Um, that's how this was like how the comic was done. But the Doombot starts attacking Nathaniel, and then it gets shot in the back, and then it collapses, and it was shot by none other than Kang the Conqueror himself, right? Yeah. So Kang the Conqueror. Yep. But he's a time traveler. So when you talk about time, right? This version of Kang the Conqueror came back in time, or into the future or whatever, to train Nathaniel, right? And turned him into, yep, pretty much to become himself. Kang is forever. Kang is immortal, right? This is just Kang. They're all technically, yes, technically yes, yeah, technically this is Kang from everywhere, right? Kang, because Kang exists in every timeline. Kang exists in every year. There's a Kang in this year. There's a Kang in last year. There's a Kang 2 years ago. There's gonna be a Kang next year, right? Whether it's the same Kang, whether it's a different Kang. Kang, there are so many versions of. They're all, well. There's slight modifications, right? For example, this Kang looks nothing like this version of Kang, right? They're different people, right? Um, but yeah, here's Kang. He breaks the Doombot, throws it into a portal, and he says, um, he's like, the kid asks, like, who are you, right? And he tells him, he's like, only who one who knows infinitely more than you can imagine, Nathaniel. He's like, that's not an answer, and how do you know my name? And he's like, another pretty obvious question, and I'd hope you know better. And he's like, better? He's like, I'm Nathaniel Richards, the liberator of the Library of Victor Von Doom, right? This is the secret history of the world, and I'm its heir. And he's like, the reverie in your voice is embarrassing. There's no easier place to lie than in the passages of a book. You'll learn to trust only first-hand sources. And he's like, um, he tells him, like, though I suppose compared to the gruels you've been raised on, this would appear to feast. This would appear feast. So let me ask you: would you rather read history, or would you rather make it? Right? And that's enticing to him, right? Because he grew up on these historical figures, and he's like, that's all I ever wanted, right? And Kang tells him, so he's like, are you ready to now ask your question again? He's like, who are you? And he's like, the question with 10,000 answers: the Conqueror, the Eternal, the God Pharaoh Ramatut, the Timekeeper Immortus, right? I have been them all, and I will be again, but there's only one answer that has ever truly mattered. In the end, I am Kang, and at the beginning, I was you, right? So here's Kang the Conqueror. This is what he looks like without his helmet, and this is Nathaniel, right? And he tells him, he's like, through this doorway, there's infinite number of times in my world, eras that sing my name and praise, planets that worship me. But to earn those, I had to know loss, I had to know frustration, or defeat and frustration. I would save you that trauma and that time if you join me through the mysteries of the cosmos, right? And become, and he goes in. He's like, "Welcome to my world." There's like fucking dinosaurs here. It got cut off, the image, because I wanted. It was like a really big image. You see just like dinosaurs here. He took him back to the like a prehistoric era. He tells him like, in 1 year exactly, this will be the impact point for the asteroids that caused the Cretaceous Paleogenic extinction. And this is a deadline, right? You have a year to grow, and then if you don't grow, you're dead, right? And this is him like showing him everything throughout time, training him running him around, telling him about his fights with the Fantastic Four as Ramatut, right? Fighting the Avengers as Kang the Conqueror, right? Um, and so there's and then he talks about the one thing that he needs to do to be better, and it's not fall in love, right? So down here is his love interest, Ravonna Renslayer, who, if you remember from Loki, was played by Gugu and Ra, the Judge Renslayer. Yep. Um, look, her. Oh, she's in the whole series. The judge girl, her. Yeah, yeah. Um, so this is Judge Renslayer, right? And she's also the love interest of Kang the Conqueror. That's what she looks like in the comics. Right? Here's them. And she ends up dying, right? In some alternate timeline or whatever, she dies, and Kang the Conqueror mourns her, and he tells him the story, and he's like, "Is that how you'll be, boy? You wish to avoid me because you think I'm weak and because I'm a failure?" He's like, "No, no, not at all. I just think maybe." And he's like, "No, don't think. You only can listen. There's only one lesson you need to truly learn, and it's to never love. In all of space and time, um, it is the only way that you'll be conquered." And then he sends him out, right? He's like, leave, and then he decides to go out on his own, right? And he finds a freaking dinosaur. There's this other like lady here hunting, but he has a like gun from like the year 3 million or whatever, and he laser beams the fuck out of the dinosaur. So it wasn't a fair fight, and then he heads away. And there's the girl that was trying to fight him with whatever that bone looking thing is, right? And he's trying to talk to her, and he's like, "Hello." He's like, "My name is Nathaniel. I'm no threat to you. I swear." He's like, "Do you understand me?" He's like, "I understand." And he's like, "My name is Addie." Right? And he follows her, and they dance, and they fall in love, right? And he comes back, and he's like, "Sir, are you awake?" And he's like, "The space between the stars." And he's like, "Oh, it's you, boy. Are you, who? It is you who are not awake, boy. Your dream, the naive dreams of heroes, the romance of Alexander, the purity of Steve Rogers, right? You'll learn this. Um, Sentimentality never disappeared from my sight again. You'll learn this sentimentality never disappear from my sight again. You'll do as you're ordered. You will learn the lessons I teach and never disregard them. And above all else, you will wipe that pathetic paint off your face. There's a scene where like they mark him as part of the tribe or whatever. And he's like, "No, I won't do it." And he's like, "Kang does not make requests, boy. You are here by my design." And he's like, "Heed me or be doomed to a life of failure." And he's like, "That's just it. You're the one that failed." He's like, "Yes, so, but you won't repeat my failures." And he's like, "My life is my own. I'll go out there." And he's like, "Say," and he's like, "If time means nothing to us, then why can't we use it and save the first thing in this world that um and that I." And then he pauses, right? And Kang tells him, he's like, "Say it." And he's like, "Love." And of course, the first thing Kang told him was not to love, and he beats the crap out of him, Batman and Robin style. Right? Hits him with the slap, and he's like, "I'll save them." And Kang's having none of this. So he grabs him by the leg, drags him out. Here's this giant fucking gun, and he's like, "You did not." And he blows up the fucking camp. He just kills everyone. Kang does not give a shit. He tells him, he's like, "You're not going to do that." And so this is him all pissed off. Like when your mom yells at you and you're in your room and you're like, and you're laying there, kind of like, I wish you're never born, right, right. And there he is looking back at Kang, who's pretty much drunk and tired because he drinks because of the death of Ravonna. And he looks at the suit, and then he, looks back at Kang, and he puts the suit on. Right, Nathaniel is now effectively wearing the Kang the Conqueror suit. He makes a portal right when the meteor strikes and kills all the fucking dinosaurs, and he leaves. And he doesn't know how to really use the suit. So when he does leave, he lands in the middle of a desert. Right, he takes his helmet off and he lands in Ramatut's Egyptian Empire, right? Yeah, that version of Kang got hit by a giant fucking rock and exploded. Well, that's what I assume. I didn't go forward and continue. If I would have read every single Kang comic that I wanted to cover here, I would be here for days. But because he's a big character, big extensive stuff, and I do plan on eventually, I want to do a Kang event. I'm thinking like the multiverse, not a marathon, but like an event, like a comic event on him, talking about like one specific major event that he's a part of. I'm thinking like the multiversal war, because you know that's coming up, right? Right. There's like the Council of Kangs and whatnot. There's a lot of different things with Kang the Conqueror that I want to talk about. The shows that like depict Kang very well. I thought that Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the Marvel Avengers show, um, with the really badass theme song in like the first season, um, I thought that they depicted Kang pretty well. Um, yeah. But yeah. I'm just trying to think of like other events, but I do plan on bringing you guys more Kang the Conqueror events specifically. Just because there's a lot of different versions of Kang that I didn't get to cover. I wanted to cover Iron Lad and Immortus, the two major other players. I obviously could only fit so many comics in here without turning this into another 3 hour special. Um, but the major ones that I'll talk about are Kang the Conqueror, and then the next one being Ramatut, right? So here he is, Nathaniel landing in Ramatut's very own palace or empire, and 1T MB. I thought it was like Jabba the Hutt, but it was not. Anyway, so he is a variant of Kang, like I mentioned, Ramatut, and this is the comic where he predates himself, right? The first original comic of Ramatut, and so it is a Fantastic Four comic, and so we start with, you know, just kind of like this image of the Fantastic Four being held prisoners by Ramatut, but the comic actually begins with Mr. Fantastic at a museum, right? Um, this comic is kind of messed up. Like it's a little messed up. So so Reed is at the National Museum of History, right, in New York, and he points out that there was this radioactive thing that helped cure blindness in ancient Egypt. And Alicia Masters, the wife of Ben Grimm, the Thing, right, is blind, right? That's how she fell in love with him. She was touching his rocky body, and she's like, "Oh, you're different from all the other men," right? Because this dude is literally a rock monster. So that's how they met and became a thing. But here's Reed saying, "I can cure your blindness." If we go back in time, right, using Doctor Doom's time machine, which they had just encountered in the last episode or the last like issue of Fantastic Four, um, we can raid Castle Doom, take the time machine back, and go and grab that radioactive potion thing to heal your eyes, right? And here's Ben, here's Reed, and Alicia, blind Alicia, and Sue. And he's like, it can only mean one thing. At a certain point, in there's a cure for blindness. And he's like, if you're thinking what I'm saying, then there's a chance for Alicia. And he's like, remember Doctor Doom? It's at the conclusion of that adventure, FF number 5, um, that Doom's castle was abandoned by him, but there's still a chance that there's that machine that'll send us back in time, and it could still be operational, right? Here's the Thing picking him up. He's like, "Oh, why are we standing around here, John? For let's go," in that like typical like 60s New York accent. And he's like, "Ben, you hot-tempered, loudmouth, beetle-brained gargoyle. That's what I've been waiting for you to say." And here they are flying their flying ship, the VTOL pogo plane, vertical takeoff landing. I thought that was pretty cool. More Fantastic Four tech. And they're landing at Castle Doom, and they go in and they find the time machine and they're trying to figure out how to operate it. Pretty much, they they get Alicia, the blind girl, to operate the time machine. They, they're like, all you have to do is feel the buttons and push them. she, yo, bro. So they're all four of them get on that little like carpet panel, and they're like, yeah, all you have to do is push this button, and I'm assuming they like grab her hand and like have her feel out the button and like, yeah, push this one. And so here she is pushing the button, and she sends them back in time, and she's like, we'll return in 24 hours, one day. So when we come back, you know just hit the button and bring us back. And here they are, they land by the Sphinx, and they're wondering what's going on, and there is one of Ramatut's men watching from above, and they start running down, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna get him." it's funny. The thing is like, oh, this is a heck of a time to worry about the clothes they're wearing. What do you think they are, Christian Dior? Oh, fucking the thing, bro. Um, and then they all, get ready to fight. The Human Torch flames on. Mr. Fantastic starts to stretch. The Invisible Woman turns invisible, and the thing starts running at him and punching stuff and throwing trees. But the Human Torch's fire starts to cut out, right? He can't light himself on fire. He can't fly, right? And then the thing starts getting weak. He can't throw trees anymore. It's like, oh, this is so heavy. Mr. Fantastic starts to, he can't stretch anymore, and the Invisible Woman is not invisible, right? And so they're caught by the guards. There's a bunch of them, and they all have swords and arrows and whatnot. And they bring them to Ramatut. And here he is. He's like, oh, well, what happened to us? Where are we? We've been brought to the throne room where we're prisoners of the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh stands up. He's like, on your feet, captives. You are in the presence of the awesome Ramatut, King of Kings, Master of Men, Lord of the Seven Suns. Um, and then they're like, Reed, something's wrong. How can he know about us 1,000 years before we were born, right? Because he tells them, about the he knows about the Fantastic Four, and he's talking English, before the language was even invented. This is nutty. And she's like, can we have landed in the wrong year? Can this be the future? It's like, no, this is the past. The secret lies with Ramatut himself. And he's like, of course. This is the weapon which sapped your powers away and made you my captive. This is the ultra diode ray invented in the year 3000, 1,000 years further from the future than your own. And he's like, then you too are a time traveler? And he's like, yes, I come from the year 3000, the glorious age of enlightenment, the century of peace and progress, the ultimate in civilization, and I hated it, right? For I was then, as I am now, a man of action and adventure, but there was no battles, no action, no adventures in the year 3000, no enemies to battle, no dragons to slay. It was all peaceful. Horribly, unbearably peaceful. Only person to not, to say that, I'm assuming. But and he's like, then one day, while visiting the ruins of an amazing ancestor of mine, I came upon what was left of his great invention, a time machine. Right, part of this machine still remains, and here are the plans for its operation. It'd be simple for me to recreate and use it for my own purposes. Right. So when he visited Castle Doom, right, Nathaniel believed himself to be the son of Doctor Doom, not Reed Richards. Right, and so for the longest time, right, up until I want to say Iron Lad, Kang the Conqueror believed himself to be the child of Doctor Doom, and would even, like, at times work with Doctor Doom, and the two would be together, right? But um, we all know that after he figured out his name was Nathaniel Richards, he is not Von Doom's child, but instead Reed's grandson, right? And so Reed tries to make a move on the gun to try and get his powers back, and Ramatut like backs off. He's like, "Hi, you're not fast enough," and he hits him with the ray again, kind of knocking them all out. The guards grab Ben and Reed and pull him away, and then they kind of pitchfork Johnny because he's still lit on fire, and they leave Sue in the back, right? Because things get a little weird. He's like, you shall remain at my side, for you have traveled all these centuries back through time, and you shall be rewarded by becoming my queen." Yeah, this guy, because he doesn't know about his ancestry, right, and his relation to Reed Richards, takes his grandma as his fucking queen, bro. L man. Yeah, he didn't know. He thought the whole time he was related to Doctor Doom, right? So, he sees this woman. He's like, "Ah, you pretty, bro," and he now immediately takes her as his captive. It's gonna be weird. It's weird and messed up, bro. Um, it gets better though. I'm telling you, whole thing gets better, right? So, here's Doctor here's the thing, and he's working as like one of the like Slavs with an E. I'm not sure if that's TOS on Twitch, but you know what I'm trying to say there. Working on like pyramids and whatnot, and they're making Sue look all pretty and Egyptian and whatnot, putting like the special garments on her and the dress. And you know, while Ben is working, the rays that sapped him, are still in his body, right? And so what ends up happening is that he starts to slowly turn back into a human, right? And those handcuffs that were meant for the Thing are not actually meant for Ben Grimm, right? And so he slips out of his handcuffs, right? And then because Ben Grimm was in the military, he's trained in judo and boxing, and he takes out the guards, takes their horses, and heads out, right? And he's on his way to the castle. He wants to make it back to be able to save Sue Storm. And here is the Human Torch kind of being used as like a jester to make like extravagant fires and whatnot, which is pretty much like making the Queen's own brother like a party, like a jester or whatever. It is That's exactly what it is actually. So he's making her like light hearts of fire, and he's kind of like, yo, this is madness. I could beat him up if I wanted to, but I'm so powerless because I'm weak. And from behind like the curtains, Ben goes and grabs the gun. He's like, "And now, my bride to be, sip your nectar and toast, and our love shall be soon. You shall be the queen of all the Nile." And Ben grabs the gun from behind and kind of like walks in. He's like, "I did it. I got the gun." And Rama Tut is like, "Oh, what's going on?" And he starts because he's not in the sun. I guess the sun, it was what was affecting him. Since he's inside of the Pharaoh's place, he starts to turn back into the Thing, and it's kind of like he's getting all whoopy and whatnot. So he uses the gun on Sue so that she could get her powers back. Um, and so she ends up, kind of like running, um, trying to run away from Kang or Ramatut, but she turns invisible, and the clothes don't turn invisible with her because she's wearing like regular clothes and not like the molecule changing costume. And so he could still technically see her because she's just running in like she's just running without like her body, but her clothes you can still see her clothes. And so she's like, screw it, I gotta forget the costume, I gotta shoot the Human Torch. And she hits him, and he ends up getting all his powers back, right? And with it, he ends up you know fighting the guards and whatnot. And while they go to grab Grim, he's like, we have to find Reed and get back. And they get on, the Human Torch starts flying, and they get on their way to find Reed, and they end up just finding him like Bing Chling, trying to save everyone. Um, they fix his powers up and whatnot, and they end up heading back, and they dig their way towards the Sphinx, right? Because they end up finding out that the Sphinx was what Ramatut used as the time machine, right? To be able to go back in time, and they break their way in, and like they're just under it. And he's like, hold on, there could be booby traps. So Sue throws the gun in there, and it explodes, and it's like, look, there's the thing has been atomized or whatever, right? So we can't go through the door. So the Human Torch ends up burning a hole straight up, and he's like, what's going on? Reed's like, that's kind of dangerous, and then he peeks his head up, look at this dude. Bro, yo, I'm, I'm telling you, the guys at Marvel baked out of their minds, bro, when they drew this. They're like, yo, let's make Reed Richards a fucking giraffe, dog. Draw the whole body. Or no, I'm assuming this is what they wanted, right? Like an extended neck to look out, right? Like just to peek. Yeah. Yeah. But this is so goofy, bro. But he's like, oh, it seems like we're in the control room, and so they end up going around, and they go through different doors, but they all converge on the same location, right? He's like, we've searched everywhere. This is where he is, but he's like, it's too late. Within seconds, I'll be transported to my dimension, another age where my satellite globe takes me. He's like, and he leaves, right? He ends up traveling on. He's like, I wouldn't count on that, Johnny. Remember when he mentioned that an answer of his invented the first time machine? It could have been Doctor Doom, right? So maybe he was Doctor Doom himself. Maybe he found a way to live for centuries. It might have been the future Doom or the Doctor Doom of the future. And then Sue comes out of the corner like, look what I found, the cure for blindness. And he's like, oh my God, we got the vials for Alicia. Let's bring it back so that we can she can see. It's like, oh, that means she'll see again. We'll have to do all we have to do is get it back. Do you hear me, Alicia? You're gonna see again. And they go, and there's the time machine, the like carpet thing. It's landing on them, and it's taking them back. He's like, all right, Reed, I'm sorry, as usual for sounding off. Um, And he's like, hey, look, it's the retriever from the time machine. We got here just in time. He's like, quick, under the screen. Alicia's activating it back in the 20th century. And then they come back and they're like, yay, it worked. And he's like, Alicia, baby, wait till I tell you. Guess what we brought back with us? And he's like, and then the rest of the Fantastic Four are like, oh no, don't say it, Ben, don't say it. The vial's gone. And he's like, I was afraid of that. And then, oh fuck, did the image get corrupted? Oh no. Pretty much, I'll explain it. The image kind of got messed up, but um, Reed's like, yeah, I was thinking about this the whole time, and is like, I don't know if I could take radioactive stuff with me because it might just like disappear when we're time traveling, and since it was like a radioactive chemical, right, I couldn't bring it with me. So he's like, this was, and the Human Torch is like, oh, this is a big waste. We went all the way over to Egypt for nothing. No, they brought it back, right? He brought it back with him, but when they time traveled, they couldn't bring back anything radioactive, so it just disappeared. So so they lost the cure for blindness for nothing, literally for nothing. And that's what the Human Torch is like, oh, this whole trip was for nothing. And he's like, no, nothing is ever a waste. Now that we know there's a substance which will aid us in restoring sight, I'll never try to stop duplicating on my own. And Alicia's like, oh, Ben, my darling, your love and safety of all of you means so much more than being able to see. He's like, we had it in our hands and we lost it. For once, all my power and my strength did no good. He's like, oh, Ben, we're all safe together. And he's like, there's always tomorrow. And he's like, Alicia, dear, comfort Ben at this time. I suspect he needs it more than you. He's like, but all of you risked your lives for me, to help Alicia, and I'll never forget it. And that's all that matters. They hug him. I was like, no, Stan writes like every incident in life doesn't have to be a happy ending, but this is no exception. The FF haven't much time to brood. For the next month, they'll meet the threat of the Molecule Man, foe that can destroy the galaxy. Um, that's pretty much how comics were done. But yeah, that was it. That was kind of that. This whole thing is why I kind of said it was messed up. It's because they did the whole trip, bro. They did the whole trip for nothing, for absolutely nothing. Because in the end of it, I'm trying to fuck his grandma. Kang over here trying to get with his grandma, and these guys are trying to find the cure for blindness, and they get it, and they bring it, and they're like, "Oh, it didn't work." Yo, this too funny, bro. This shit's too funny. But all right, we're on to a more serious note because this next comic is actually pretty good, right? And it's another variant of Kang that I wanted to mention, which is the Scarlet Centurion, right? Another variant of Kang who debuted himself in Avengers Annual #2. I think the original comic was just the king-sized Avengers number whatever, but every once in a while, a lot of these like really good comics will get rewritten in an annual series, like the best of the best. And so this is the Avengers Annual #2, written in 1967 by Roy Thomas. And it's the old Avengers taking on the new Avengers, right? From the comics, right? Um, so we start with this one with the original Mighty Avengers team, and that consists of Captain America, the Black Panther, Hawkeye. At this point, he is, if I'm not mistaken, this is Goliath, but it's still Hank Pym. And no, so this is the second Avengers roster. Um, actually no, technically this is the third Avengers. Yeah, technically this is the third Avengers roster. So the first Avengers roster was Ant-Man, the Wasp, Iron Man, Thor, and the Hulk. Right? Then when Captain America joined the team, they were together for about a couple issues, but um the Avengers split off. Iron Man went to go do his own thing, so did Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Thor left for Asgard, and Hulk was never really on the team that much. Hulk was kind of on and off, and so Captain America needed to redo the team, right? It was just him. So his first mission was to bring some heroes. So he ended up, like little side off, he ended up getting Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Hawkeye, and they joined the Avengers, and then they went to go look for the Hulk, right? Eventually, in the Fantastic Four, Black Panther debuts, and then he joins the Avengers, and then slowly more and more of the original Avengers start to join the team. So Ant-Man and the Wasp end up joining, and they change their names into. Well, she stays the Wasp, but he changes into Goliath, and then Giant Man. Um, But this is the third roster with Cap, T'Challa, Hawkeye, Wasp, and Goliath, right? Which is still Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. And they're walking through the streets, but everyone's like staring at them. They're like, "Who the hell are these guys? What's going on?" Right? So they're getting these weird looks. They're walking through the street, and the Wasp thinks it's like, oh, so the Wasp says it's like, oh, it could be like maybe they think something's going on or whatever. Maybe it was when I slipped on something because they had just come from a fight against who the fuck did they fight? I think they fought like Doctor Doom. They were in a like fight. Yeah, they were at Latveria fighting Doctor Doom, and they're like, oh, it must be like some I might have slipped on a time machine or something. It could be something like that. So she tells him she's like, oh, he's like, yeah, maybe it was Janet the Wasp. She might have like touched something or something like that. And he's like, oh, you got me, Cap. It must have been Jan. Jan may have been scatterbrained at times. She's no shrieker. And she's like, oh, that man of mine. But it was strange if I were being commanded to sleep. And there's like a scene where she ended. This is all in the last issue. And he's like, whatever. We'll discuss it after we're arrested. But where's our Jarvis? Where's our butler Jarvis? Right? And he's like, there's something weird going on inside. And they all go in. He's like, oh, come on, Winghead. If you expected a brass band to welcome you, we wouldn't be the Avengers, right? And he's like, no, that's not what I mean. This place seems different from how we left it. He's like, how could it have changed when we were only gone a few hours, right? And he's like, that friend is what I intend to find out. Let's head to the meeting room. And they're like, all right, I'm with you. And T'Challa warns him. He's like, hold on, Cap, look out. The painting above us is opening, and there's something going on. And traps end up falling on Captain America, right? And he's like, oh, one more step, and it's how we Avengers, right? And so they end up making a run for the like the break room, the control room, or whatever. And the second they get in, there's the old Avengers roster inside, right? And Ant-Man and the Wasp, who are the same Ant-Man and the Wasp that are here, as well as Hulk, Thor, and Iron Man, right? Right in their first mission, right? He's like, it can't be possible. They're around our meeting table with the original Avengers, and he's like, and two of them Jam and are you and I. He's like, and Thor's like, oh, by the bristling beard of Odin, what insolence intrusion are these? Who dare brook the mighty Avengers in their very lair? And he's like, oh, whoever it is, they'll be sorry they tangled with the Hulk. Right? And he's like, oh, easy, green friend. Maybe those are costume clowns have an explanation, and it better be a good one. And then Hawkeye's like, Cap, what's this? Why would Thor and the others be here? It's like, I think I begin to suspect these answers, and I don't like it one bit. And the what you would think that it'd probably be the Hulk to lash out first, but the first person to lash out was Hank Pym, who's like, oh, you're really an imposter, a 10-foot imposter. He's like, oh, imposter. I was too flabbergasted to do anything but stare. And he's like, oh, you're just a phony. And you're the phony giant man is Henry Pym. And then they start like fighting each other, right? And so they all start taking each other on. The Hulk fights T'Challa. Iron Man takes on Hawkeye, Cap, and Thor start fighting, and they're not doing too hot, right? So Hawkeye shoots these smoke arrows, and they leave under the cloud of smoke, and he's like, the costume devils are gone, but who are they, right? He's like, oh, it's not important. It's not an important question, Hulk. And the Wasp was like, what does Iron Man mean, Thor? He's like, the armored one senses that their presence on Earth can bode not but evil. Whoever they are, they be wherever they're gone, they must be found and conquered, right? And so, we turn back to Cap, who's like, at least these pieces of the puzzle are falling into place. It seems as incredible, as utterly impossible as it seems. I think those were the original Avengers, and the Avengers as they would be if you and I had never existed. And he's like, you got to be putting us on wing. Oh, you got to be putting us on Winghead. He's like, I wish you were. He's like, wait a minute. I'm beginning to figure out what Cap means. It would explain why the crowd was being so weird. But it's insane. Nothing in the world has changed. He's like, nothing, Jan, except perhaps the one diabolical creation we ourselves used only an hour ago, Doctor Doom's time machine, right from the last mission. And so the Avengers, the original Avengers roster, start to contact someone. He's like, we've got to learn who these characters are and how we can find them. He's like, I, Giant Man, within moments, the one the one who might know shall appear onto us. And he's like, if he doesn't know, we might as well turn our superhero union cards in. He's like, you all put too much trust in the one who comes. You should be like the Hulk and trust no one. And he's like, they're like, Silent Hulk, stay Silent Hulk, because the image is forming. And it's the Scarlet Centurion himself. He is working with the Avengers, the original Avengers roster. And he's like, why have you summoned me, from the vaporless void, from the place where eons are as moments? Who dares disturb the sacred slumber of the Scarlet Centurion? Right? And he's like, he talks as he's dirt beneath us, but Hulk could show him different. The Hulk could, and everyone's like, be quiet, you green skinned monster. And he's like, oh, well, we summoned you because the appointed hour has come. Those whom thou hast said would appear have done so. It's like they've invaded our chambers and fled. And he's like, let their matter be forgotten. Stay here and await reappearance with those with the news you seek. Thus speaks he who walks the unlimbered centuries, the Scarlet Centurion. He's like, fancy name, fancy clothes mean nothing to the Hulk. If you had a brain inside that thick head, Hulk, you'd know that the Scarlet Centurion is the greatest benefactor the Earth has ever known. And the Avengers end up coming back and working on this machine, right? And so Cap is like, all right, I got it. Someone's got to operate it. It's called the Herodotrin, right? And it's pretty much going to show them what's going on in this world that everyone's acting so weird. So Cap puts the helmet on, and we turn back to the original Avengers number 2, right? And so here's Iron Man with that all golden armor, and he says he's like, what if the Phantom returns? Like, he's not likely to, right? Someone's gonna replace him, right? This is all the way back in Avengers number 2, and when Cap puts on the helmet, he's like, let's go see what's going on. And the Hulk talks about, oh, I'm gonna leave now. I don't need any of you. I'm still the Hulk, and I'm still the strongest thing that walks the earth. And whatever I do from now on, I'll do alone. And someone yells at him, he's like, wait, Greenskin. Um, and everyone turns, like, who in the name of sanity? Is like a red garbed figure. Yes, he's transparent. And there's the Scarlet Centurion, right? Back in the original Avengers second mission. And he tells him, he's like, yes, Honored Ones, I'm transparent, intangible, because I am not truly of your era. I'm of no era. I'm in no one age of man. I'm from no one age of mankind. I'm the Scarlet Centurion. And he's like, he who ever treads the endless millennium, to give aid wherever he may. And he's kind of like deceiving the original Avengers, right? He's like, if so, this era needs not your soulless intruder. He's like, does it not, Thunder God? Does it not indeed, right? Can you, the mightiest beings of this time, claim to get over famine or plague or pestilence, right? Have you truly the power to vanquish evil or to make even one lame child walk anew, right? It's like you grow uncommonly silent, as if the limits of your power are recited. Where now your vaunted boasts your empty bravado, right? And he pretty much is just saying, like, you guys don't have the power to end starvation or disease or whatever the fuck pestilence means. I'm pretty sure that's like, what the fuck is pestilence? Let's look that up. That's a good question. Pestilence. Yeah, word of the day. Pestilence, a fatal epidemic. I guess that's what that means. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the horseman pestilence that caused disease. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Um, this guy from Apocalypse. Uh, where is he? He was let's see. Bro was so gross. But yeah, the chick. She made everyone sick. She made everyone throw up. Her. Um. Yeah, she pretty much gave like would touch people and they'd give people diseases. This is what she what he looked like. Oh no, that's famine. Hold on. Where's um. Yeah, one of these. I think it was this guy, the guy with the weird head. This was either him or her or the female. Um. Oh, her. Yeah, this is her. And she gave everyone like a disease. Everyone they touched would like turn into a yeah her turn into like a sick person, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, he's like, oh, you're empty boast. And he's like, all right, Mister Whoever you are. So the five of us can't solve all the world ills. Do you really think that we wouldn't give it our best lives, give our very lives to be able to do the things you've mentioned? He's like, if that's so, you shall have the chance you seek. But first, I must return to my own timeline so that I may isolate the causes which most threaten this unfortunate era. He's like, and we're supposed to be waiting for you. He's like, it's a small price to pay for, but for the monument, for the benefits of so monumental. You must wait one more day, or you must wait one day, no more. And then the next day, there's a ringing, and he's like, "Listen, Avengers, listen to what you must do." And he's like, "My calculations, prove that no evil may be undone and no human fertilities forever vanquished until a cosmic imbalance is corrected. An imbalance caused by the excessive number of beings in your area that possess superpowers. Only when they are overcome, their powers neutralized, may I act to bring about paradise mankind deserves. Defeat them, and the Scarlet Centurion shall keep his vow." Right? So pretty much the Scarlet Centurion tells the Avengers, you guys have to beat up all the other Avengers or super powered heroes, and then once that imbalance is over with, right, I can come back and help everyone. So they do that, right? And they take on the Fantastic Four. Right, here's the Avengers fighting the Fantastic. Here's Hulk fighting the Thing, Iron Man fighting the Human Torch, Reed being smacked around by Thor, and then Sue Storm being held back by Giant Man, right? And they end up taking the Fantastic Four down, that's but not just them. They go after Spider-Man here, who like tries to web up the Hulk, but gets overdone by two, three, four other Avengers. I'm assuming the Wasp is flying around somewhere there, and then the X-Men as well, who get beaten up by the Avengers. Yeah, the Kang tells the Scarlet Centurion tells the Avengers there are too many superpowered beings in your era, and that's what ends up causing disease and famine and whatnot. So you have to beat up all the superheroes, when in reality, Kang is trying to get rid of all these superheroes so that they never interfere with his future plans, right? Yep, yep, yep. So here they are. They take out Namor, the Submariner, right? And they move on. Here's Doctor Strange, right? And he's getting beaten up by Iron Man, right? And then they take out Nick Fury and his Howling Commandos and Daredevil over here. But not just the heroes, right? Um, oh, in case you guys were interested, um, before I go on to the next point, there Stan Lee and Roy left a note here at the bottom, that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. He's like, much as we hate to intrude upon such a somber scene, it behooves us to offer one untarnished no prize to the first faithful one who best explains why the spaceborne Captain Marvel does not appear within these plasting pages, right? So, what that means, right, is there was a thing in the 60s, right? You know, Stan Lee, when he wrote comics, he didn't have the best memory. He was just a little. He was old for his age, right? Stan Lee in the 60s was still. I mean, he must have been 50 or something like that, right? Something like that. Um, but Stan Lee says he says my memory wasn't the best, and we had all of these characters, right? That we had to write once a month, like a story every month, and he was pushing out all these comic book characters stories, right? The X-Men, the Avengers, right? And then when they split up the Avengers, the Hulk, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, right? So he had to write all these comics for these guys, and they had to, you know, all make sense to stories that they've written before, and they had to all tie up, right? And so he says, he's like, if I ever mess up, right, I want you guys, the viewers, to tell me why, like, it has to be related to the story, right? But why I messed up, right? So here he asks why the Avengers didn't go after Captain Marvel, right? Um, there's other cases of that. For example, Bruce Banner, the Hulk. A lot of times Stan Lee's memory would call him. He'd write David Banner instead of Bruce Banner, right? He'd get confused, and so what the no prize pretty much is someone will write a letter to Marvel and they'll say, hey, in regards to you calling Bruce Banner David Banner, maybe Bruce Banner's actual name is David Bruce Banner. That's his full name, right? First name David, middle name Bruce, and he goes by Bruce Banner because that's his middle name, right? But his real name is actually David Banner. And Stan Lee would say, that's a good idea. Let's keep that in the comic. We'll write it next time, and he'll send back an empty letter, right, from Marvel. There's nothing inside except, well, there's a piece of paper inside. And the letter opens up and it says, "Congratulations, here's your prize. It's a no prize," right? And that was the letter. You'd get nothing back for it. It'd be pretty much Marvel's way of just saying, "Hey, thanks for for the no prize, right? Let's see. Uh, let's see how much this shit. This is what it looked like back in the day, right? And it have a stamp with the Hulk, and he's like, "This envelope contains a genuine Marvel Comics no prize, which you have just won." And you open it up, and there's nothing inside. Handle with care, right? This is what it is, right? Congratulations, you win the no prize, right? Um, see how much it goes for on like eBay, bro. I'm telling you, signed by Stan Lee himself on eBay. Let's see how much this shit goes. Look how much look how much this shit goes for, bro. $5,000 for a no for an empty envelope, bro. $5,000. Yeah. I mean, it's signed by Stan Lee up here, and you got the. Let's see if there's one without Stan Lee's signature though. I'm about to, I'm about to spend $5,000 on a fucking envelope, bro. um, Give me $5,000. Let's see. Yeah. Probably be under. How much does this go for, bro? Can I buy this? How do I purchase this? eBay. This is one signed. It goes for $200. Rare 1969 Marvel Comics Hulk, no prize. It goes for $200. Um, if you want to straight up buy it now from this person, 121. People will buy it for different things. There's the book as well. Which I think just explains all the errors and the continuity. 275, right? I'm telling you. Um, these the envelopes. There weren't that many. I mean, $200 for a freaking envelope is ridiculous, right? No one would ever pay that kind of money. I mean, I might, but if I can get that shit plastered on my wall. But yeah, I just wanted to stop and talk about that just because it was really cool how he did it and what they were explaining. But yeah, the Avengers, they go after all the superheroes and then they go after all the villains, right? So at this time, there's the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver who are still working for Magneto and the Brotherhood. There's the Red Skull, Amora the Enchantress, Sandman, um, Radioactive Man, the Black Knight, the original Black Knight, um, not fuck, what's his name? Bro, there's like four of them. The Black Knight, not Kit Harington's character in Black Knight. Not Kit Harington. Not Dane Whitman, but the original one. Yeah, the original Black Knight. Not Dane Whitman, but what's his face? Fuck. I don't go to Marvel.com. There's a wiki, like the wiki database. Not Dane. Nathaniel Garrett. That was It's the original Black Knight that Marvel had written back in the 60s, the first one to debut, I'm assuming. Nathaniel Garrett. And then when he dies, he gives up the suit to Dane Whitman, who is played by Kit Harington in the Eternals. This guy in the Eternals. Um, Speaking of Knight, we need to finish the Eternals. um, yeah. Um, yeah, we're literally at the end too. It's funny. For those that don't know, I've been watching all the Marvel stuff with Knight. Yeah. 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 Is there something you're trying to say, bro? Is there something you're trying to say? No, no, no. Mm, 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 mhm, mhm, Is there a specific reason? Is there a specific reason why you want to watch She-Hulk now? Does it have to do at all with like Megan the Stallion at all? Like is that why? You're fucking stupid. All right, let's let's finish this up. But yeah, they go after the villains and then they make like one last stand. Here's Doctor Doom, Electro, Mole Man, and I'm pretty sure this is fucking Molecule Man, but I could be wrong. Um, yeah, it's Mole Man down here. Yeah, Mole Man. Mole Man. Yeah, yeah. Mole Man. He looked kind of weird in that debut comic. This is what he like originally looked like this little thing, 3 foot two. Oh, what's his name? His name was like Harvey Elder in Earth 1010. Yeah. Yo, I'm trying to get. Yo, look, it's to scale. uh, that shit's funny. Oh, look at oh, that's a Doctor. Stanley signed this Doctor Octopus pop figure. Damn. Oh, it's a Stanley signed Stanley. That's pretty cool. Um, all right. Let's get back to it. Yeah. So the villains try to make one last stand. He's like, yet as you view such scenes, you can sense that even these reluctant crusaders are foredoomed to fall to the crushed beneath the heels of the world, right? And here are the Avengers, the original Avengers, like thus speaks Thor, the mighty Avengers, let America, the very world, heed my words. From this day forth, no atomic tests, no science inquiries shall be allowed upon this planet. Let any other mortal gain superpowers and force him to be vanquished. Disregard the command only um at this at thine own peril. And he's like, the Avengers are acting as virtual dictators. I never thought this would happen, right? Pretty much, no more superpowers, no more nuclear bombs, no more nothing. Kind of like how Apocalypse wanted it in that X-Men Apocalypse movie, like no more. And he goes, everything they built will fall, kind of thing. And here he is, like, we have done well, man of this era, with yourself as the only superpowered beings, not sealed away. The cosmic imbalance is now nearly corrected, but when but five more are defeated, what long-awaited knowledge shall I not unveil to your eyes? And those five are Captain America, Hawkeye, Black Panther, and Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? So here's the part two where there's a rematch between the old and the new Avengers and the Scarlet Centurion. So they break in to a facility, or well, they're caught by Baron Zemo, right, in the facility, and they all end up like escaping and splitting up, right? So you have Black Panther and Hawkeye at like some, like, what do you call it, a like construction site, and the Hulk comes after the Black Panther. He wants his revenge, and the Hulk and Black Panther kind of flicks this board at him and then kicks him and knocks him out. But the Hulk, being the Hulk, just kind of gets staggered a little and slaps the Black Panther off. Dude goes flying, and here's Hawkeye breaking through walls and going through, and he finds Iron Man, and they've already fought, right? Especially this version of Hawkeye who remembers the fight with Iron Man. So when he breaks in, he hits him with three arrows, and Iron Man's like, "You can't break my armor." And he's like, "Ah, don't worry, it's not what I wanted." And the arrows start to corrode onto the or corrode, I guess, onto the armor, and it's anti-metallic acid, so he starts to melt, right? Um, and so Iron Man is immediately subdued inside his own suit, and so Hawkeye can turn to fighting the Hulk. And here's the two of them. He's like, all costs must evade his pile driver fist. One solid blow would literally mean my life. And he's like, ha, Hulk hardly feels your puny attacks. And so Hawkeye steps in and hits him with an arrow. And Hulk being all cocky, he's like, you're trying to stop Hulk with that? Don't bother. I won't even bother to duck. But the arrow starts to whip around him, and it's like a noise that's being made. And the noise ends up turning Hulk back into Bruce Banner. And he's like, what in talk about a dumb luck? It's changing him back to his human form, and Iron Man's trapped inside his suit. Hulk gets knocked out, and they cover him up and bring him back with them. And then here's what's up, Hawkeye, right? Against the Hulk. Yo, I'm telling you, you guys sleep on Hawkeye, bro. People sleep on Hawkeye, right? Um, but then, well, all that's going down. Thor's taking on Captain America again. Exact mirror match of what happened in the originally, and this time Captain America has a strategy, right? Thor, he starts whacking at Captain America, and Captain America keeps at bay. And so Thor decides to throw his hammer at Captain America. And he's like, he's hurled his hammer at me, and this means I have a chance to act. So he throws the shield at the hammer, right? The hammer gets knocked off, and Captain America grabs his shield again, right? And so he's like, by all the veils of Asgard, truly thy courage in the face of death doth almost equal thy folly. And then he's like, I've just gotta prevent him from touching that hammer, right? Because Thor has the curse, right? If he's away from his hammer for too long, like I mentioned in when I covered Thor, um, if he's away from his hammer for too long, he turns back into Donald Blake. So all Captain America has to do is keep Thor away from his own hammer, and that's exactly what he does. He throws the shield at his legs just as he's about to grab the hammer, and he can't turn back into Donald Blake, or he can't stay Thor. Just when he's about to grab the hammer, he turns back into the lame figure of Dr. Donald Blake, and he ends up grabbing all the like tools they need for the time machine and bringing back Don with him. And here's this Scarlet Centurion. He's like, go on, you Star Spangled Fools, savor the taste of your fleeting victory. Ere long it shall turn into the bitterest gall. Nothing you can do, no amount of gaudy shield hurling can save you from the ultimate fate I have planned for you. And while that's going on, here's Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? Or I guess this is Goliath and the Wasp. And here's the other Wasp, the original Wasp in the bright red with the little point. And she's like, there's the intruder who claimed to be Henry Pym. Now, while he's normal sized, maybe my stingers can. And the Wasp notices, she's like, well, that's the boat, honey. According to Cap, it's due to dumb parts of the time machine at sea. And she's like, Hank, duck. And they really microscopically are fighting each other. And he's like, as the biochemist complies, you're the one that spoiled my aim. Then you shall become my victim. And the two of them start, like flying and fighting around. He's like, Cat, got your tongue, imposter. Let's see if oof. And then she gets like slapped out of the air. He's like, tell me, why are you still wearing that same outfit? Are they still wearing crew necks in this era too? And he's like, I'll make all the senseless remarks you want to girl with my face. Um, we'll see who's left alive when the dust clears. And he's like, if she wins out, I'll become my own killer. And so here's while they're fighting, right, like these microscopic fights. Here's Ant-Man and Goliath taking each other on. Um, and what Ant-Man ends up slamming Goliath into this wall, but pretty much what ends up happening is Wasp ends up knocking out Wasp with a stinger. This Wasp, future Wasp ends up knocking out past Wasp with her stingers, and Goliath ends up pushing back Ant-Man and dropping him into the ocean. Um, and so they end up winning the fight and heading back to um, the hinterlands where they are rebuilding the time machine. Right? And he's like, personally, Jen, I'm surprised that the Centurion or the Avengers did not have Doom's castle demolished. I still can't escape the feeling that one piece of our little puzzle is still missing, and that's assuming that Cap and the rest got what they're after. And they end up putting the pieces back together, and they're like, all right, now we're set. Great. Our great. Our confused counterparts still comfy, Jan. And so you know it, leader. Although I still don't see why you wanted me to the captured Avengers brought back here. And then T'Challa stops and he's like, hold on, something's not right. I can sense it here. And she's like, he's right. I can almost feel another eye on us. But who? And it's the Scarlet Centurion that ends up showing up. And he's like, by your archaic standards, I suppose that mercilessness would be equated with evil. But as you know, my time is not your time, and your standards hold no means for one such as I. And there's him not as a like hologram, but as him like the Scarlet Centurion as himself, and he ends up blasting Captain America. And he's like, so Captain America, as always, you are the ringleader. Then know that it was I who mentally caused your sudden concern over Bucky's death. And he starts blasting him. This is from, I'm assuming, a previous comic. I didn't go through and read all of the original lines of comics from this, but he freezes him in this ice, and that like he had been when he originally died, and then the Wasp ends up getting drowsy and weak, and so then he ends up zapping T'Challa in the leg. He's supposed to be like their more agile figure, so he gets like knocked out. And Hawkeye shoots a bow at him, but he literally does nothing to him, and he's like, this won't do anything to me. So he ends up missing and throwing it back at Hawkeye, blasting him, blowing him up. And while he's doing that, Goliath ends up shrinking, right? And he's like, yet if the truth were known, as soon as it shall be, our agonized archer's arrows did not miss its target. Actually, if our foe had known I was on that last shaft, he'd find a quick cure for smugness. What ended up happening was Hawkeye shot Goliath on his arrow, and it went forward, kind of like in Civil War. And Goliath was small, jumped into the time machine, and began to work on it on the inside. And so it kind of bought them the time they needed. And he's like, Goliath, where is the primitive one called Goliath? I had defeated him as Giant Man. I won't have him foil me as someone else now. I won't. And he starts flicking all the buttons. And from the inside, the time machine starts to work. And Goliath ends up sending the Scarlet Centurion back to where he was from. He's like, I'm fading, vanishing back to the vapors void between the years. But then I'll be physically helpless, unable even to touch anything, let alone destroy the Avengers. No, not when victory was almost within my grasp. I can't happen. I can't. And Goliath ends up growing back into the regular size, and he's like, I did it. Turned the entire chamber into one huge version of the Chrono Square, and which once sent the Fantastic Four back to the days of Blackbeard. But now I'm fading away a willow, like a willow, will o' the wisp. I don't know what the I don't know. It's probably some 60s reference. He's like, then my scheme must have worked to perfection. And he's like, well, outside the time machine, an immobilized Captain America sees we're vanishing just like the Centurion. If Hank did what I suspect, what a story we'll have for our files. And then the Watcher shows up, right? And he's like, then suddenly Cap's thoughts are intruded upon by a voice less which is older than the stars yet younger than an unborn planet. And he's like, no, Steve Rogers, though the final triumph is indeed yours, it must never be known. Allow me to introduce myself. Men call me the Watcher. Because you are now victorious, I can tell you what I had dared not before, that the foe you so viciously fought and bested was a vengeful entity who was once known as the Pharaoh Ramatut, on his way from the past to the far-flung future, during which he encountered Doctor Doom himself. His era spanning sphere encountered electrostatic disturbances in the relative time stream, which you see in Avengers number 8. And then he landed by chance, which is the first debut of Kang the Conqueror. And then he landed by chance in this century, which he decided to make his own under the name of the Scarlet Centurion. But his scheme of conquest failed, and now he helplessly continues his journey in the year 4000. Mort has written that he returned to battle the Avengers once more under his 50th century name, Kang the Conqueror. But neither you nor he shall remember aught that has transpired here. For it is best that no man shall know his fate, or the hour he shall meet his Maker. Now and farewell. And now farewell. And the Avengers, they all end up back at their own Avengers compound, the like old Avengers. He's like, back on our mission from the past of 2 decades ago. And as far as I'm concerned, from now on, let's leave time hopping to alley oop. Um, Cap, I just want you to know I'm sorry about. And he's like, oh, about Bucky, partner. And he's like, thanks, I appreciate it. But at least our trip to the past proved that Bucky's truly died then. May his soul rest in peace. I've got to learn and accept that, because this is what he would have wanted. He's like, Cap, there's something I gotta tell you. For a moment while you were gone, I fell asleep at the panel. He's like, it's okay, Jan, no harm done. I suppose you're right, and yet I can't escape that feeling that there's more than an accident. Nor can I, Hank. Though I suspect that would have caused it. He's like, forget it, both of you. After all, how important can it be? And it ends just like that. So to sum up these last 3 or 4 panels, the mission that they were on before in Doctor Doom's castle, before they had done this whole thing with Kang the Conqueror, or I guess the Scarlet Centurion, was they went back in time, and Cap had to, I guess, rewatch Bucky die. Um, and so when the Watcher removed their memories, when they come back, they're, Jan's like, I fell asleep on the panel, so I feel like it was my fault that something happened, right? I have this feeling that we did something, and they did. They ended up going on this whole adventure. Um, that's they ended there. It's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's not that important. But that's how the comic pretty much ends. And that's pretty much what I've brought for you guys this week. there's nothing more to this. But I did. There was a couple other versions of Kang I wanted to talk about. Immortus, as well as the Scarlet Centurion, which is a favorite of mine. Or I'm sorry, not the Scarlet Centurion. We did talk about him. I meant to say Iron Lad. I would assume. Yeah, hold on. I have the timeline written here. I managed to hit the first couple of interesting ones. After that, I mean, there's the original debut of Kang back in Avengers number 8, but there was also let's see. Kang. Um so yeah, there was the original Kang the Conqueror, then I did this time the Rushing River event, and then there's another one that I was going to do which was the Love of Ravonna, which explains Kang and his love interest Ravonna and how the Avengers ended up stopping him. Um Then there was Immortus, who was trapped in the realm of Limbo. Kang and the Avengers must confront the rogue lord of this other dimensional place, the all-knowing Immortus, future version of Kang. Yeah. So Immortus is the version of Kang from the future. Um. Yeah. But there's. Mhm. Mhm. No. Each version of Kang is different, right? Um. Immortus is the future version of Kang, right? And so he's lived through all of this, experienced all of this, right? Some versions of Kang just want to be with Ravonna. Some versions of Kang want to conquer. Some versions of Kang want to become Egyptian rulers back in the BC eras. Iron Lad is a good example of it. This is a version of Kang that is in an Iron Man armor, right? Nathaniel Richards was born in the 30th century on Earth. What is it? Or was it 611, to a reality where humanity was never went to the Dark Ages. After centuries of advancement and warfare, peace was brought to a land by a time traveler, Nathaniel Richards, right? And then he eventually, knowing Kang would follow him, young Nathaniel attempted to find the Avengers to protect him. However, when he arrived at the Avengers mansion, he found it in ruins and the Avengers had disbanded. And Richards attempted to get in touch with Tony Stark, also known as Iron Man. However, Richards found Stark hard to get in touch with directly due to his security details and bodyguard, and he decided to take another route and broke into Stark's facility, recovering the remains of the android Avenger known as Vision and downloading in his Vision's memories. Nathaniel hoped to find a means of contact the Avengers. Instead, he found a failsafe program created by the Vision to find the next generation of the Avengers, known as the Young Avengers, right? Which consisted of Elijah Bradley, who, if you remember from Falcon and Winter Soldier, Elijah Bradley was the young boy that they visited when they went to see the other guy. Elijah Bradley would become Patriot. There was Teddy Altman, who would become Hulkling, the shapeshifter, and young Billy Kaplan, who is also, if I'm not mistaken, um, Wanda's son, um, Wiccan. Yeah, the wizard kid. Yeah. Um, I might be wrong about that though. Let's see. William Kaplan. Yeah, Wiccan. And then they also get uh oh shit, who's that? Catherine Farrell. And they reassemble the Young Avengers. Um, Eventually though, they come to find out that he Iron Lad is just another version of Kang the Conqueror. And then there's that original Sim comic that I did want to talk. I probably am gonna cover this, which is Kang and Immortus, um, working with, or Iron Lad working with Kang and Immortus. But yeah, it's Iron Lad has, because this is the first Iron Lad is the first version of Kang to be a hero, right? To not be a villain. So it's actually kind of interesting how they did it. He ends up joining that Young Avengers roster, which the Young Avengers were Wiccan, Speed, Hulkling, Iron Lad, um, Elijah Bradley. I'm Iron Lad, Patriot, Hulkling, Wiccan, fuck. Hulkling, Wiccan, Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, Stature, which is Cassie Lang, um, Vision, Kid Loki was in it as well, America Chavez, Marvel Boy, which is Novar, and Prodigy, who was this guy, David Aline, right? I'm assuming that's how it is. The main characters though being Iron Lad, Elijah, and then you have Wiccan and Speed and Stature. Yeah, it was cool. They got Kid Loki to join. If you remember from Loki, the one that killed Thor. Yeah, they ended up getting him on that roster. But yeah, that was Kang the Conqueror. At least what I brought from you. There's so much more I can talk about from Kang. All his different versions, the Council of Kangs, which Rick and Morty ripped off, and then Marvel re-ripped it off as the Council of Reeds. What's up? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mhm. And yeah, here I'll show you a picture of the Council of Kangs. The Council of Kangs. Here they are, all Bing Chling, every single version of Kang. And then there's Council of Reeds. Here they are, every different version of Reed Richards. If you guys remember when I did cover Reed Richards, here's the Council of Reed again. Every version of Reed Richards here. Um, and they all have the Infinity Gauntlet. This is when they figure out that the Infinity Gauntlet can only work in their own reality, right? And they're all different. But yeah, that is Kang the Conqueror. Raul, do you want to give a grade to Kang the Conqueror? Even though, funny enough, we didn't actually talk about him. We talked about all his other variants. But yes, do you want to give? I mean, I guess we. Yeah, yeah. Mhm. Definitely. I mean, that's what those last like things that Filoni was talking about. Those last little things of Marvel coming up. To the last couple of phases that he revealed. So it's interesting. I want to see how they set things up because I know that he's a major player. He'll probably be in Loki, the new season of Loki. He's definitely going to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp, or I guess Quantumania. Um, but yeah, Kang is a major player when it comes to the Avengers. And I want to see how they rewrite Kang because originally he went after Captain America because the man out of time. Captain America not dying in World War II was the reason why, or like living a normal life and becoming part of the future, was the original reason why Kang went back in time. Um, right. It caused Ravonna to die, because she never exists. She would never exist, and then Kang would go back in time to fight Captain America. Um, that was the big thing with that. Um, but yeah, it's there's some interesting different versions of Kang. If you guys want, I will for sure cover a Kang the Conqueror event. Um, Probably the Conqueror. Like the original King the Conqueror, the main King. So like of all the variants, Kang the Conqueror is the main version of Kang. This version, this one, the one that shot the dinosaur at the beginning. This is this is what you see out of Kang every this version. This is every version of Kang the Conqueror, right? Um, right. Um, this one, right? That like here, like this version of Kang. He's probably the one you're gonna see in the MCU. I would expect it'd be really cool if they did it, but that kid from Iron Man 3 if he grew up to be Nathaniel Richards, that would be so sick. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. That I brought you guys for this week. He gave it a 10 out of 10. I would agree. Kang is such a vital, important character to a lot of these storylines. Um, and he's like overall ruthless. There's some of the shit is funny, some of the shit is interesting. That's written with him. So messed up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, that was this week's episode of Marvel Buddies. Thanks for coming out. You have anything else to say before we head out, Mr. Knight? No. All right. Yeah. Thanks for coming. Hope you guys have a good one.